Okay, in this video, I'm going to go over how to convert a polygon from a shapefile into a raster. So if you need to do some raster math or include these shapefiles in an analysis of a raster, then they need to be in raster format. And so what I have here is a digital elevation model. That's the white to black. And then I have two watersheds that were delineated that are polygons. And in order to either mask the raster or do some raster math, I need them to be in raster format. And so what I'm going to do, there's a tool to do this. So if we go up into the command search, and we can search for polygon to raster. And you can see there's this polygon to raster and conversion tools. And basically, we're just going to give it the watersheds. So give it our polygons. And notice only the polygons you have available show up here. So the DEM doesn't show up because it's not a polygon. And then this value field is, so it's going to turn these into a bunch of cells, right? And we need to give those cells a value. And so if we go over to our attribute table, we can see that we have object ID, shape ID. And in this case, we have this ID field that's 1 and 2. And I'm going to say that I want that ID field to be what gives the watersheds or the raster cells their value. So now any raster cell in this will have a value of 1, and any raster cell in here will have a value of 2. So now I'm just going to give it a name. So we'll say Brush Mountain Watershed R for raster. The cell assignment type, this is basically, so remember when we're converting to raster, these edge lines are not necessarily going to perfectly match up with your raster cells. So when you're near this edge, you have to tell the tool, how do you determine whether a cell gets a value of 1 or doesn't get a value of 1? And this is saying that if the center of the cell is within this polygon, then it gets a value of 1, which in many cases is a good decision, but you want to think about exactly what you're trying to do before you choose that option. And then the cell size, so you can give it a specific cell size, or especially if you want to be able to do math between two rasters, you can point it to another raster that you want it to match. And so we want it to match our digital elevation model. So I'm going to tell it, okay, make my cells match that. And then once we get all that set up, we're going to run. And what we'll see is we'll end up with, these will just be blobs of cells with these values. And so I'm going to turn off the shape files, and you can see they look the same at this level. But if we zoom in, we can see that they're actually, now it's a raster. So if I turn on the shapefile, right, this is a polygon, and you can see that those lines don't lose resolution when you zoom in, but the raster value, or once it's a raster, you can see that it's lined up on those cells. And real quickly, just to show, you can see we have value 1 and 2. And when I'm in this explore mode, if I click here, we can see that I have a value of 1. If I click here, I have a value of 2. And if I click somewhere outside, there's no data. So in the areas where we're not in one of the watersheds, you just have no data. So that's how you convert polygon to a raster.